Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of Bellbrook City Council. Tonight is a special meeting. Today's date, August 4th, 2021. If you could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Pam, if you could call the roll, please.
Mr. Havens.
Here.
Dr. Van Veldhuizen.
Here.
Mr. Greenwood.
Here.
Mayor Schwaller.
Here. Before you have the minutes of the special meetings held July 19th, July 21st, and July 24th. Does anyone have any corrections or additions to those minutes? Seeing none, I declare the minutes approved as submitted. Tonight are mayor's announcements. Oh, I'm sorry. We need a motion to excuse both Elaine and TJ from tonight's meeting.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to excuse them both, please.
Thank you. In a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ernie.
A motion was made by Dr. Van Veldhuizen to excuse Mrs. Middlestutter and Mr. Hoke from the August 4th meeting of the City Council. This is seconded by Mr. Havens. Dr. Van Veldhuizen.
Yes.
Mr. Havens.
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
Mayor Schwaller.
Thank you, Pam, and thanks for the reminder. Under mayor's announcements, I'd like to first thank council for adjusting their schedules to accommodate this special meeting. I know we've met a lot in the past month. Tonight we're here to appoint our new city manager, who will become the 4th city manager in the history of Bellbrook. Before we start tonight's agenda, I'd like to thank members of council, the applicants who applied for the position, and Pam Timmons, our clerk, for the time and effort participating in the process to find our new city manager. The clerk was tasked with the responsibility to schedule interviews and ensure a quorum was present. We easily could have done this in a Zoom environment, but post July 1 it had to be done in person, so it took a lot of effort by Pam, and thanks again for your hard work. During the interview and selection process, council met several times and exhibited a great spirit of cooperation and professionalism. Our deliberations were both methodical and comprehensive, with the sole goal of doing what is best for the citizens of Bellbrook. For this, I'd like to offer very sincere thanks to council, including TJ and Elaine. Thank you very much. As a result of the process, we have found Rob Schomer to be the most qualified candidate, and tonight we will move forward with his appointment. Rob impressed council with his knowledge of the city and his knowledge of city management. He has the experience to step right in and begin addressing the needs of our community immediately. This time, I would like to go back to our agenda, and if we could have a reading of Resolution 2021-Z. Councilman Greenwood.
Thank you, Mayor. City of Bellbrook, Ohio, resolution number 2021-Z. A resolution to appoint Robert Schomer as the city manager, approving his service as the Director of Finance and Director of Safety, and to approve and enter into an employment agreement. Whereas the council of the city of Bellbrook and Robert Schomer desire to enter into a written employment agreement for appointment as a city manager, and whereas it is required that the council of the city of Bellbrook, pursuant to Article 6, Section 6.01 of the Bellbrook Charter, shall appoint a city manager by a majority vote of its members and fix his compensation. Now therefore be it resolved by the council of the city of Bellbrook, state of Ohio. Section 1, Robert Schomer is hereby appointed to the employment position of city manager of the city of Bellbrook, substantially in accord with the terms and conditions contained in the agreement attached hereunto as Exhibit A, and is approved to serve as the Director of Finance and Director of Safety. Section 2, Michael W. Schweller, as Mayor of the City of Bellbrook, is hereby authorized to execute an employment agreement attached hereto with Robert Schomer on behalf of the City of Bellbrook. Section 3, it is hereby found and determined that all formal actions of this council concerning and relating to the passage of this resolution were adopted in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public and in compliance with all legal requirements, including section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 4, this resolution shall take effect at the earliest date allowed by law.
Thank you, Forrest. And again, tonight is the time to begin our new step in Bellbrook's life, to start over with our fourth city manager in history. As we went through the interview process, we had one gentleman who stood out above the rest with his knowledge of the city and knowledge of city management responsibilities. We were very pleased in the work that Rob had done before he came to us. We asked all the candidates about the same 10 basic questions, and Rob's response has indicated knowledge, depth, and experience. We're very happy to be able to have this resolution before us tonight and to be employing Mr. Schomer as our next city manager. Council, does anyone have any comments or questions?
I concur, Mayor. Very proud to bring you on and have you part of the team.
Dr. Dave, anything? Or?
Just echoing your statements, Mayor, that of the people we interviewed and the resumes we looked at, this clearly stood out.
Thank you. That being the case, we have a motion regarding, and by the way, too, I think that even though TJ and Elaine are not here tonight, they're both supportive of our position. They both had travel plans that took them out of the state prior to our scheduling a special meeting. Forrest, we have a resolution or a motion regarding resolution 2021-Z.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 2021-Z.
Thank you. Get a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Motion was made by Mr. Greenwood to adopt Resolution 2021-Z, a resolution to appoint Robert Schomer as the city manager, approving his service as the Director of Finance and Director of Safety, and to approve and enter into an employment agreement. This was seconded by Mr. Havens. Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Havens?
Yes.
Dr. Van Veldhuisen?
Yes.
Mayor Schwaller?
Yes. Congratulations, Rob. The only remaining piece of business we need to do before you can join us is the oath of office. You join me up here at the podium. You can certainly read along if you'd like to.
Okay.
Raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, Robert Schlomer,
I, Robert Schomer,
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
will obey the laws thereof.
and will obey the laws thereof.
I swear to,
I swear to,
in all respects,
in all respects,
uphold and enforce
uphold and enforce
the provisions of the Charter
the provisions of the Charter
and the ordinances of Bellbrook,
and the ordinances of Bellbrook,
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. If you can sign this, we'll have a signed copy. Thank you very much. This time I'd welcome the new city manager to join us at council table. And again, welcome, Rob. We're glad you're here. We look forward to an exciting term with you.
Likewise, thank you.
Thanks. Old business, we have none. New business, we have none. Probably too early for a city manager report. Any committee reports for this evening? Safety?
I have, none.
Thank you. Service?
None.
Finance and audit?
None.
Nothing to report? And community affairs?
None that we know of.
Nothing. Okay, thank you. Clerk's update, and we do have a regular scheduled meeting of city council on Monday night, so there's gonna be more content there than just tonight, but anything you should update us with, Pam?
On August 9th, the next meeting, there will be the beautification awards will be presented to the residents of the city from that committee that does that every year for us. And that's always a special celebration for the city. Also on the 9th, we are going to have legislation to look at that concerns the opioid epidemic. We had the Purdue Pharma bankruptcy settlement. I think it was at the last meeting or the one before, but this is a new lawsuit that the Ohio Attorney General is bringing against a couple of pharmaceutical companies. So the information from the AG just came out last night, actually, so we don't have the draft of that yet from our attorney.
This is what we have a very short window to approve and
Yes,
file?
it
Okay.
has to be approved before the 13th, so luckily you meet on the 9th. So,
Very good.
and that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, thank you. At this time, as we begin open discussion, I'd like to turn your attention to our new city manager, Rob Schomer, and have Rob introduce himself somewhat briefly to the citizens. And I know he will be in his office effective tomorrow morning. He'll certainly be willing to take visitors, probably call ahead, get an appointment. But Rob, the floor is yours if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm truly privileged and honored to be able to come serve in this community. I entered public service work some 30 years ago and entered my career in law enforcement and spent the last almost 25 years, as mentioned before, at the City of Huber Heights. I'm loyal to the idea and the concepts of public service. And when I retired from my previous employer, I wasn't sure exactly if I was going to seek additional employment in public service or perhaps have that chapter of my life close. And as the opportunity was announced here within this community, I immediately began looking at and studying and getting a little bit more knowledge and background. I knew a little bit about Bellbrook, of course, growing up in the region. But the more that I saw and the more that I learned, the more that I truly fell in love with. And I recognized that the cohesiveness and the effectiveness and commitment of the elected officials passed on and truly being in touch and responsive to the residents really had that fundamental goal of public service. Then I started to look at some of the work products, the annual reports from the various departments, the comprehensive plan, the budget that was put together by the former city manager, finance director. Everything just really stated how much involvement, openness, and commitment to public service that there was. And I decided then, this is a great opportunity, and if I would be welcomed and privileged enough to have an opportunity to serve, I would truly enjoy it and truly honor it and respect it. And thankfully, I find myself here tonight. And I pledge to all the elected officials, to all the staff, and all the community that the idea and the concept of serving the will and the vision of this council and being able to collect and gather those ideas and put them into action on the benefit of every single resident, business, visitor, and citizen within the community is of utmost importance and truly is what I am committed to. And I look forward to any and all opportunities to hear from residents, good, bad, and indifferent. The idea of openness, honesty, and transparency is paramount to have a successful local government. Local government is truly the only form of government that the residents can truly reach out and touch. We have direct impact for day-to-day services, and all the residents have direct impact on the day-to-day operations of the organization of the local government. So there truly is no closer relationship in a government situation than what you have in local government. And the relationship and the reputation of this community stands far above many in the region, and I'm very proud and very excited to be part of it, and guarantee that I will do everything that I can within my abilities to contribute to and continue enhancing the quality of life and maintaining those great relationships and the service that this community expects and deserves. So thank you very much.
Rob, and welcome again. Any open discussion of council? Forrest?
My thoughts during this process were for the citizens, to make sure that we have somebody in place that's going to keep on carrying forward some of the things that Melissa had going. She left the city in decent shape, and as we move forward, we're going to have a lot of challenges that maybe we haven't dealt with before. On this scale, we have a bridge, a road that's kind of collapsing. We have stormwater, we have budgets, we're coming out of COVID. We've had a lot of things thrown at us. So moving forward, looking for the new city manager, my thoughts were someone who's dedicated and experienced. So when they come on board, they can hit the ground running and get us on the right track, keep us from falling behind, and hopefully in the next several months we can start seeing that being put together. And Rob stood out highly among the other candidates with his experience. His experience was one of the attributes that set him higher than most of the candidates. The other candidates, I would like to thank them for applying, and the ones that we interviewed, because when we do interviews, I think that's the case with any business or government agency, you learn from each interview. The candidate also learns, and when that happens, that experience helps in the long run. So the appointment of Mr. Schumer was vetted very well. We asked a lot of tough questions, and I think that it's going to work out very well. And thank you, Rob, for coming on board. That's all I have.
Thank you, Forrest. Councilman Havens.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to start by thanking all the candidates that applied, and I hope that all of the candidates understand that this deliberation, the discussions happen in executive session, and that's not something that is shared with the public until we get to the point of something like tonight. When it comes to etiquette and maybe what you might expect from other jobs, please realize that we're down to city staff members, and this current staff was doing their best, and we were also moving very quickly to make the best decision we could and not leave the city without a city manager. Rob made that pretty easy. At the same time, community reached out in many different ways and shared concerns, and I want the community to rest assured and understanding that this council and even the two that aren't here tonight spent countless hours researching references, working back channels, digging deep, and especially probing on something that was a concern that was voiced to us, which is diversity. And I can honestly say the deeper we dug, the more that Rob really shined in the feedback we got. And with that, I definitely want people to understand we did put the effort in making this decision. And welcome, Rob. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Ernie. Councilman Van Heisen.
Yes, these gentlemen, I won't restate what they've said. I will say that today several emails came into council about Mr. Schomer's hiring, issues that were raised, and all the ones that I quickly read through, as Councilman Havens said, all those issues were brought up, they were looked into. In fact, Rob, you were very forward in the interviews about some of those issues that we raised even before the community did. Beyond that, I just tell you, you spoke very strategically, which was welcome, and you also had demonstrated and spoke of a good tactical and operational grasp of what the city needed, not just to keep running, but to keep growing, the challenges coming up. Definitely appreciated that, and I'm just looking forward to working with you.
Thank you, Dave. And again, I cannot say much more than re-echo what my other councilman had said. I've been fortunate enough to work with the three prior city managers, and I certainly look forward to working with Rob. Thanks a lot for being here. At this time, we have comments from the public. Please state your name and address. You're entitled to 3 minutes, and also we ask that any complaints or remarks directed at city staff or employees be avoided. Do we have anyone who would like to speak tonight? Mr. Bucklow. Dave, you have 3 minutes.
You know, my father, many of you have fought in wars in foreign countries. And when Americans go to war, we fight for the right to speak, not for the right to limit speech. Our enemies would fight for the right to limit speech. So
State your name and address.
here's my first minute. My name's David Buckalow, live at 126 Lower Hillside Drive. I'm glad we got a new city manager. I really am. I hope you're a vast improvement. I think you will be. I got a couple questions for you, Mr. Mayor. And I might be mistaken, but when you did the motion for the resolution, did you ask council members for comments, pro and con? And maybe you did.
We did not tonight. We had a vote. They had a chance to vote yes or no and add comments.
And did you ask for comments from members of the public before you voted?
No.
So you've executed a contract, a binding contract, and I just saw it today, and I haven't read through it.
We passed a resolution this evening, and we also did an oath. We have not executed the contract.
But
I'm authorized to execute the contract.
but you are authorized to, and you intend to.
Yes.
Yeah. And I just, there's probably things in the contract which are legitimate discussion items that people probably have legitimate questions about. And you're rushing this. I don't think you ought to be. I think you knew what you were going to do tonight. I think you should give people time. It's not a slam against you. I really am happy we have a new city manager. And that's it. I've discussed some of these items with you.
Anybody has questions on the contract, feel free to contact me. We've been through with legal counsel. He had a lot of detail.
I understand.
With our entire council here, a lot of detail. I mean, this is not something we just popped up today and threw in front of everybody. We noticed it last night as we had to, and we had to put together in advance. This contract is probably more detailed, a little bit more comprehensive than the past couple ones have been.
It's the content of the contract, which I have a couple of questions about. And you could probably guess what those questions are.
Well, yeah, and tonight's not a question and answer. This is just comments from the public. But if you'd like to
But
talk
now
further about
but the decision's been made,
that's correct.
and it's too late to make changes to the contract.
That's correct.
You've agreed to it.
That's correct.
So what's the point of public participation
They can make comments like we do anytime.
after the event?
It's like you do at every meeting. We let public comments at the end of the meeting. I think your 3 minutes are about up.
Right. Well, you choose your own battles. That goes for both of us, right?
Thank you. Yep. Does anyone else in the viewing audience care to speak tonight? Please come forward.
Hi, I'm Meredith Brenniger, 2221 Ivy Crest Drive. And I might be stirring up a little bit of trouble, but I always hope it's a little bit of good trouble. I could use a little bit of help from council to clarify a few things related to Mr. Schomer, which welcome. I have a copy of Mr. Schomer's resignation letter as Huber Heights City Manager dated 3/9/21. In this letter, he does not give 30 days notice. He said it would be effective upon the execution of a consulting agreement, which I also have a copy of, signed by him on 3/9/21 and the law director on 3/10/21. The consulting agreement is a lump sum payment of $150,000 for 6 months of consultation with the city of Huber Heights. It seems a little unusual to be this high, but I'll go with this for now. In an article published by WHIO just today, Bellbrook city officials said, quote, "There is no conflict between the consultation agreement and Bellbrook's employment agreement," end quote. The Bellbrook municipal attorney is then quoted as saying, quote, "The consulting agreement is effectively a severance payout agreement and release of claims. It is likely drafted in line with the contract he had with the city," end quote. I have a copy of Mr. Schomer's most recent employment contract with the city of Huber Heights. It states that, quote, "Nothing in this agreement shall prevent, limit, or otherwise interfere with the right of Schomer to resign or retire at any time for his position with city. However, Schomer agrees to provide 30 days notice of his resignation, and such resignation shall forfeit any right of severance, except as provided for in Section 3F of this agreement," which I won't read. 3F of this agreement is almost a repeat, except that they're saying maybe there could be some exceptions in the city personnel rules, policies, and regulations, but that they basically forfeit the right for severance. So I'm not an attorney, I will acknowledge that, but my reading suggests that Mr. Schomer was not contractually eligible for a severance package since he resigned and didn't even give 30 days notice. And if it's not a severance payment, but purely a consulting fee for 6 months, it seems awfully high given that his base salary was $140,000. So I'm just curious, how does council make sense of this data? I mean, my guess is that you dealt with some of these. I think these are some of the deliberations that you mentioned, but as you're right, we're not privy to that. It certainly can give the impression that Mr. Schomer's resignation was not purely for, quote, personal opportunities. Now, impressions can be wrong, which is why I asked for clarification, especially since there have been several media publications about his sudden departure from Huber Heights and the fact that he is still involved in an open lawsuit and countersuit involving his role with the city. We trust you as elected officials to help us sort through these questions. I realize it's after the fact, but I still felt the need to ask. I'm curious about one other area. In what ways were the current city staff involved in the search process? Did they have a chance to meet with candidates and give input in the process? Further, I wasn't made aware of any opportunities for the public to provide input until Mr. Schomer's selection was announced on the city's website yesterday. Hiring a city manager is arguably one of the most important duties you fulfill as council members, and I hope you will be transparent about your decision-making process so that we can trust you and the outcome. Thank you.
Did my council care to respond? We don't really owe a response if we don't want to. Or Rob, do you want to respond or anything? Or?
I would just indicate that if I would be happy if there are questions specifically about any previous employment. I am an open book, and I'd be more than happy to provide answers to those that I'm allowed to give. And certainly you paraphrased certain elements and points of that agreement. There was a lot of it that wasn't paraphrased in terms of what was included in that, and also the accompanying resolution that talked about waiving any requirements for 30 days and also eliminating and including the parts regarding some of the severance and pay. So there's been many questions, and certainly skimming over it, it can lead to some confusions, and I would agree that at face there could be some gaps in there, but I'd be happy, more than happy, to help fill in any of the information that I possibly can to help you understand. But again, that was my previous employment, and I'm focused on and very excited to engage in this community and measure and answer to the expectations of this body of council. And really, the terms of my separation, really have no bearing on my ability to seek and acquire this employment, which I'm very honored and privileged to be able to undertake. So I look forward to the opportunity to speak to you in the future.
Thanks, Rob. And again, council is charged with employing the city manager and also employing the clerk. As your elected officials, I think we went through the proper process. I think we vetted Rob as much as possible. We did not have public meetings. The city employees were introduced to Rob as our presumptive city manager yesterday afternoon. That was a process that council collectively chose to go forward with. We did not have public meetings with the presumptive candidate, nor had we for our last two city managers. So we thought we were following a proper process, and we were very happy. And as your elected officials, it's our responsibility to make the hire. Does anyone else have any comments to present before this council this evening?
I'd just like to mention the city charter has some things in there about appointing a city manager. The city charter is the first thing we go to. We followed that. I think we followed that very well. And the attorney, when they went through and looked at everything, also mentioned some things in the city charter. And it's solely council makes this appointment. Public input, I didn't see anything in the charter when you're dealing, you put yourself in a place where you're trying to make a decision, you're dealing with a lot of candidates. I think in some ways that a lot of public input might create some confusion. And I remember when we vetted and hired the last city manager, it was pretty much along the same process. And there wasn't public input, so to speak. That's all I have.
Thank you, Forrest. Does any member of council have any other business to bring before us this evening?
No, Mayor.
I just remind you, Mayor, and ask my fellow council members, I'm traveling on federal government orders next Monday, and so we'll ask for your excusal next week, please.
Thank you. Safe travels.
Thank you, sir.
See no other business to bring before us, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you for attending.